everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and I had a subscriber ask a question, which a lot of people have asked lately, so I suppose it's something I need to cover again. I'm going to flip it in here. And he basically wants to know, how do you tell if you're overtraining? So let me put on my +5 hat of weaponsmithing. Let's do a little bit of crafting. And for people who ask in these videos, is it necessary for you to do the hat every time? Yes, it is, because the hat makes me look like a goddamn sexual Tyrannosaurus. Bonus points for those who know the reference, for the new viewers. Now, how do you tell if you're overtraining? All right, this is where we get into a lot of confusion, because overtraining and overreaching get often confused because they both have the word over in them, and there's a relationship between them. It creates a lot of confusion out there. But those are both actual exercise science and sports medicine terms. Overtraining syndrome is what most people are thinking of when we're talking about the term overtraining, which is detrimental. But overtraining syndrome is not an action. That ing at the end makes it sound like a verb, and people think it's an action. It actually isn't. Overtraining is a short way to say overtraining syndrome. It's an actual medical condition that's diagnosable by a sports physician. Dead giveaways for you before you go see the doctor, because a sports physician is going to be able to diagnose you real quickly. The signs that you know that you've reached the overtraining state usually, or you've started to reach it. You might not even be fully into it yet to where you need to be hospitalized yet. But you might need to be hospitalized if you truly reach this condition as an athlete. Number one sign, most of your big exercises, your strength goes down at least 25%. Meaning if you could bench press 300 pounds for 5 reps, and your 5 rep max turns into, 25% off of that, 75 pounds, 225 for 5. All of a sudden you can't do more than about 5 or 6 reps with 225, but you previously done 300 for 5 reps just a month ago. That's a dead giveaway. Same thing, squat, deadlift, whatever your exercises are. 25% loss in strength. Usually when you are also in the overtraining condition, you're going to notice extreme irritability. You're going to notice a lot of cramping. Like when you try to sleep at night, you're going to find things like your lower back cramp up. Maybe your hamstrings cramp up so intensely that it's at least a 7 or 8 on the 1 to 10 pain scale. It's going to be intense cramping when you try to lay down and sleep. Your lower back will probably cramp so bad that you can't stand up most days when in the middle of you trying to train. Intense cramping. You're usually going to see elevated resting heart rate. So if you're normally 60 or 70, resting heart rate is probably going to go up to 90 to 100. Your blood pressure is usually going to go up. These are all signs that the physician is going to use to diagnose you. These are a lot of the actual direct medical symptoms of overtraining syndrome. Now, a lot of the rest is going to be blood work related. They're going to notice stress hormones through the roof and everything else. But these are dead giveaways. Usually the sudden loss of strength on all of your major exercises of 25% or so, if not more, combined with the intense cramping. Intense cramping, no matter how much you hydrate or how many electrolytes you get in, you're going to cramp up really fucking bad. Those are your symptoms of overtraining syndrome. Again, very, very easy to determine. Like, you almost shouldn't need to ask because you will reach it. Now, what a lot of people are talking about, though, they're talking about, are they overtraining? Well, you can't tell because it's not an action from what you're doing in the gym. But the thing is, if you reach an overtraining state, you probably need to fire your coach. Because whoever's writing your training programming has literally no idea what they're doing. They have no idea how to train an athlete or a lifter if you're reaching that condition. Like, fire that person. If you're writing your own programs, stop writing your own fucking programs. I mean, it's that simple. There are pre-written programs that lots of you could follow by very experienced coaches all over the internet. Hell, I have free programs. Bill Starr, Mark Ripto, all these guys put out free programs. They're everywhere. You shouldn't need to write your own training programs if you don't know how to do so. And if you ever reach an overtrained state, you don't know how to write a program. So stop. Quit. You don't know what you're doing. You're going to hurt yourself. Get someone who knows what they're doing to write it for you if you can't do it. It's not a big deal. It's nothing to admit that you don't know how to write a training program. Just like when you have a program written for your computer, if you don't know how to do it yourself, you have an expert do it. It's not like this stuff costs money for training programs. They're free. The best ones are all free. You shouldn't need to pay for one. So, easy solution. But the thing is, where we get confused is the overreaching thing, because overreaching is reaching a state to where you are putting in more workload than your body is capable of recovering from. But the thing is, short-term overreaching can be a positive thing if you deload and allow yourself to actually recover. And that's where we get the confusion so much, because planned overreaching is part of most really good successful programs for top level athletes, serious athletes. If you're a recreational lifter and you're just trying to get some bigger biceps and chest and lose a little bit of fat or be in shape and feel better, but you're not competitive, you probably don't need to overreach. Because overreaching has negatives to you. It's going to make you tired, or it's going to make you irritable. It could put your performance off on other things in life. It could hurt you on an important day in your career. Overreaching in the middle of exams while you're in school is going to cause problems for you, because it's going to fatigue you. But overreaching is something that you generally only do for 1 to 3 weeks at a time, and then you deload immediately afterwards. And that's how planned overreaching works. It's not something that you do all the time, because if you were to chronically overreach, what you're going to find, usually if you overreach too long, depending on your program, if you're deloading every 4th week and you're overreaching for 1 week every month, you can't do that for long, that type of training, because you're overreaching too often. If you were to try to extend it beyond a week several times in a row, you're going to start losing performance. Performance loss is normal from too much overreaching. All right, that's normal, but it's not enormous performance loss. It's losing 5 pounds of strength, 10 pounds of strength on a big lift. It's small, but you are losing performance. And when you're overreaching to that point, you also stop gaining muscle. And that's what people need to understand. A lot of times people are calling that overtraining, but no, it's just stalling because you're not recovering enough. It's not the overtraining state yet, but it is too much overreaching. And when you overreach for too long, you stall. You stop making gains, and then you lose growth time. You lose strength gains. You lose muscle gains and everything else, because you did it for too long. Now, for people who do 12-week blocks, and let's say they only overreach for 3 weeks, up to 3 weeks at a time, once every 12 weeks in a linear style program, that's totally different. You can get away with it for about 3 weeks, but around that 4th week, if you were to continue to go too far, you're going to start losing strength. You're going to stall out. You're going to go the other direction, and that's a bad thing. You shouldn't be losing strength for a week straight in a program. If you are, you overreached for too long. You overextended how long you can get away with overreaching, and you're going to pay with regressing. You're going to regress slightly. You're going to lose a little bit of strength. You might lose a little muscle mass, but you probably won't. But you're certainly not going to grow for that week or two. Until you recover from the overreaching, you're not going to grow. That's why planned overreaching is usually followed by a week of deloading, or at least a session of deloading, if not the full week. And that's perfectly normal. Some coaches have people do it up to 2 weeks, but the thing is, you grow during that deloading phase. And ultimately, for people who are seeking a 1% advantage, and remember guys, 1% can make or break you in a sport. 1% performance difference can mean the difference between a gold medal and being 7th place. 1% for a professional athlete, let's say in the NFL, could make the difference between a $1 million contract and a $5 million contract. 1% is a big deal for a top-level athlete. For a recreational person, you won't notice 1% in the mirror. You won't notice 1% on the scale. You won't see the difference from it most of the time, so I wouldn't worry about it. You don't need to overreach. Just a steady progression is all most novices, not novices, but recreational fitness enthusiasts need. Guys who are not competitive in a serious competitive environment. But yeah, overreaching and underreaching, so planned overreaching followed by deloads for people who are trying to be competitive could give them a 1%, maybe even a 2% advantage every year. That's why it's used. It gives you a small edge because you make more progress, slightly more progress than you would have made in that same year without it. It's not a big difference, but again, in a competitive environment, small differences are the difference between a champion and a loser. But you're not gonna, it's not worth it, I don't think, for people who aren't competing in something. It's kind of silly to push yourself to that limit that you can't recover from. And that's the problem we run into. And again, recreational guys who don't know how to write good programs, same thing, they're gonna screw up their overreaching most of the time. and accordingly they're going to end up making less progress per year than they could have made instead of getting that 1% advantage they were shooting for. So just food for thought there. But yeah, there's a big difference between overreaching and overtraining. But overtraining is very, very obvious when you reach that state. It is an actual medical condition that sports physicians can diagnose. But they're going to diagnose it based on those symptoms that I just gave you. So hopefully that clarifies that. All right, guys, so that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.